1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey guys, it's Rod from Huntington Company, and today is a new episode of TikTok, and we are switching up how we do this series. We're going to be answering your questions about the vintage market and specifically even about Rolexes. We're going to be answering any questions you guys have and any questions you guys send us on Instagram or comment below. And today we're going to be talking about three things: understanding the history of the watch and where it came from, looking at the serial number, dating the watch, and seeing if all the parts are original to that specific era, and then ending it off with understanding the movement inside the watch. Has it been serviced and are all the parts original? And how is the watch running? These three things are important to look at and understand when it comes to purchasing any vintage watch. So today we're going to take a closer look and give you guys my opinions and what I know about these three questions. Please, if you guys ever have questions about vintage Rolex or any vintage watch, feel free to reach out to us. Ask under the video or reach out to us on Instagram. We'd be happy to answer it on TikTok. Today, we're gonna be answering three questions that clients asked us, but also we do have a giveaway for the month of March. So if you haven't entered yet, make sure you follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Comment below that you have done so we know that you have entered. And then make sure you like, comment, and share every video and every post that we come out with for the month of March, so you have a better chance of winning a free marathon watch. We will be announcing the giveaway winner at the end of this month. But with that being said, let's take a closer look at what to look for when it comes to purchasing a vintage watch and how to understand the watch itself. All right, guys, let's start with the history of a watch. And sadly, the answer to this question is not what you guys want to hear. Unless the watch is government or military issued and the serial number has a database where you can track down where the watch was and so on, you're not really going to be able to tell what that watch's history is unless you purchase the watch from its original owner or a descendant of the original owner. There is no Carfax like with the car market. You can't just pop in a VIN number and see where the watch has been unless you're purchasing it from the original owner. The most information that you can gain is from how long the previous owner that you are purchasing it from has owned it for, or what information the dealer or the collector and owner has for that specific watch. Other than that, there's not much that you can gather. If the watch itself comes with some sort of paperwork, notes, or whatever it might be for previous, service history and so on, that might be helpful. But other than that, there is not a lot of information out there to really break down the history of whatever watch you are looking for. Then we go to understanding what year the watch is from. With Rolex, you have the reference and serial number between the lugs. So if you want to understand what year the watch is from, you take that serial number and you put it into an online database. And there are a few databases that you can use, and they are all fairly accurate. That's going to tell you when the watch was produced. Each serial number has a specific year or 2 years that they were produced. The more modern examples sadly now have scrambled serials, which means that there is no database. They are randomly chosen for each watch. But for the neo-vintage and vintage examples, you don't need the original paperwork to know what year the watch is from, just the serial number. And then how to understand the watch itself and how to know if the watch is all correct when it comes to its dial hands and other parts from the era that the watch was produced in. To understand this, you would need to understand the watch itself. If the watch came out during the era of tritium dials and the watch has a tritium dial, then you know that the dial is all original to the era. Is it all original to the watch? That is something that you have to understand more for the specific year of the watch. If it's a specific dial, if it's matte for 5513 or even a cream dial for a Polar 16570, it is important to understand what year the watch came out in. And that'll give you a better understanding with research that you do online and from other collectors and enthusiasts who have done the research themselves and gained the information that you need to know if the watch in that certain year was produced with that dial. But with that being said, if you do purchase a watch from the era of tritium dials, but it has a superluminova dial, there is a large chance that that watch has been to the Rolex service center, and the dial has been swapped for a fresh dial when it was serviced. These dials could still be swapped out by any other person outside of Rolex. So that does not always mean that the watch has been sent to Rolex. but does mean that the dial is not original. And that is the same thing for the hands and if the bezel has a lume pip. Looking at the lume under a black light, you can understand if it's tritium, luminova, or superluminova. And then taking a look at the serial number and when the watch was released, you can see what lume was being used for that specific example. And then you can tell if the dial, bezel, or hands are original. If we were looking at, let's say, a Rolex Datejust, and we were looking at reference 16234, if the Roman dial does not have lume on the hour markers, then the hands shouldn't have lume also. So if the hands do have lume, but the dial doesn't, there is a chance that that dial or hands were swapped out on that watch, which isn't that big of a deal because you can get original hands and the serial number does not signify what dial you have on that watch. But it is important to know and disclose that that watch does not have the original dial or even the hands. For the case, it's specifically understanding the oyster case and what is real and what is not. Taking a look at the font and the etching used for the serial number and the reference number, and understanding what is original and what is a reproduction. After a few times, you can really get the hang of it, and when you look at a case, you can know if it is original or fake. And that is the same for the bracelet. Understanding the finishing that is used on a brushed bracelet, and also taking a look at the serial number and the reference number that is also on the bracelet, which would be the bracelet code, and then the reference for that specific bracelet, and the stamping on the inner clasp. Even the end links on most Rolexes from the vintage and neo-vintage eras are stamped with a reference, if that's 55 end links or other numbers. So make sure that those are all correct for the specific era of your watch. Other questions need to be answered by a professional. If you have second thoughts about a specific watch, feel free to reach out to somebody like me or any other dealer that you trust. It is important to make sure you get a second eye if you don't know exactly what you're looking for. And if you are having second thoughts on purchasing a watch from somebody because you are worried it might be fake, then maybe you should spend the extra few dollars and work with a dealer who knows what they're doing so you know that your money is safe. But again, understanding if the watch parts are original really just has to do with the purchaser of the watch. Are you educated enough to be able to tell the difference between what is original and what is aftermarket or replaced? And if you know what you're doing, then great. If you don't, do your research, and if you still have any questions, reach out to a professional so they can be able to give you a second opinion. But there are ways to tell if the watch is original or not original, and that's what people like us get paid to do. Understanding a service dial, an aftermarket link, down to the movement parts. And then lastly, let's talk about the watch movement. Understanding if the watch movement is original when it comes to its parts and the movement itself works the same as the watch itself. Looking at pictures online, comparing it to the same movement, if that's the 3135 on a Datejust or a sport model or whatever movement that might be. Taking a look at the balance bridge, the rotor, and so on, and comparing it to an actual original movement that has been verified is the easiest way to tell if the movement is original. If all the parts look the same, the finishing is just as clean, and the serial number is correct for that era of the watch on the movement itself, then you are safe. There could be parts that have been swapped out, but if they are swapped out with original parts from Rolex, you really have nothing to worry about, and you'll be able to tell the difference, again, if you've looked at these movements long enough and you really understand what you're looking at. And if you don't, reach out to somebody who knows what they're doing. They'll be able to give you the information that you need. Now, understanding if the watch has been serviced or if it is running good. Now, first, you could wind the watch. Is it winding smoothly? Switch the date. Time it by eye or using your phone. But the best way is to use a time grapher. This will tell you the amplitude and if it's healthy, its beat error and how it's running, and then the accuracy of the watch. If it is running within spec for that specific watch, if it is a cost certified or not, then you are good. If it's not running good and there is something that does not look correct on the time grapher, then you know that the watch needs a service. These tools could be really expensive or they can be fairly affordable. They are all over the place, from eBay to Amazon, and you can find one for well under $200 for a simple example like the one that we use. It is just enough to understand the watch's movement. What we do with our watches is if anything is wrong or anything doesn't look right, we take it to our watchmaker and we get it checked right away. So we get to double verify a watch. And I know that is not something that you guys can always do. And that might be a reason why you have to pull away from just purchasing from somebody in a group or Facebook and go work with a dealer, because they're going to be able to verify, check, and make sure that the watch is correct. And yes, sometimes stuff slips. Dealers make mistakes, but at least you're purchasing from somebody who has a reputation that needs to be upheld. So if anything ever happens, you are safe and they are able to know what they are looking for. So if you're looking to purchase a Rolex, reach out to us or any dealer that you trust. And if you're looking to purchase one yourself and need some information on that watch, remember what we talked over. Looking at the serial number is not enough to understand the history of the watch itself, unless it is government or military issued. If you are purchasing it from the original owner, then you are safe to get some information from that owner. Second, if you're looking at the serial number, that is what is going to help you to date the watch. And then from the date of the watch, whatever year it was produced, that is when you can understand if the parts are original to that specific example. Going online and taking a look at watches from that same year and that same era, and understanding what dials they had, what lume they were using, and what bracelet was on those specific examples. Date codes and serial numbers will tell you what year that specific item is from, if it's the case, the movement, or the bracelet. So putting those three things together and then going from there is always most important. Understanding if the watch is original. You're going to be able to do that by educating yourself and comparing it to verified examples. If that's going on a large dealer online and looking at the examples that they have recently sold, or taking a look at a handful of different examples and seeing what is most commonly used from that era. Taking a look at the dial and seeing how crisp the font is, taking a look at the lume and making sure it is correct to that era, and then the same goes for the bezel, bracelet, and case. Understanding the condition that Rolex used for that specific era and if that condition is on par with your watch. Then ending it off with the movement. Understanding the serial on the movement, what the reference of that movement was for that specific watch, and then taking a look at the parts and comparing it to a real movement, if that's online, in person, or just photos. Then taking a look at it on a time grapher or taking it to a watchmaker to check it, to make sure that the watch is running good and all the parts are original. If it's not running good, it needs a service. If it's running within spec, you are all set to enjoy the watch. And what you purchase is an all original Rolex with a great movement that you can enjoy for many years to come. So thank you guys so much for checking out today's episode. I hope you guys learned something, and I hope you guys enjoy this kind of content because we want to make more. We want to help you guys and answer the questions that you guys have. So please feel free to reach out. And again, remember, we are having a giveaway, so make sure you enter to get a chance to win a free watch. Thank you guys so much for checking out today's video, and I will see you guys in the next one.